Back at it again with the state parks. This video will be just like the Iowa state parks video. I will go through the 12 state parks in South Dakota ranked 12 to 1. I decided I wanted to do the South Dakota state park system after I had so much fun with the Iowa one. I'm going to school in Brookings and had next to no classes that spring, so I had tons of free time to hike. I split the state up into 3 regions: Southeast South Dakota, Northeast South Dakota, and Western South Dakota. And here's the map of the 12 state parks and the legend. With that, let's get into the parks. I also ranked the parks into S, A, B, C, D, E, F tiers as well. 12. Fisher Grove. Our only park in the F tier, we have Fisher Grove State Park. Fisher Grove is a 277-acre park in Spink County and is the closest state park to the center of the state. Fisher Grove has no trails, which is the main reason it ranked last, but this hasn't always been the case. The James River flooded relatively recently, knocking the bridge out, which was the only access point to the trails in the park. It has not been repaired since. The park sees little maintenance by the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, and is primarily maintained by the adjacent golf course. It's definitely falling apart though. 11. Roy Lake. Roy Lake State Park is a 560-acre park in Marshall County. Despite its large size, the park only has a third of a mile of trails, which is why it ranked so low. The park was kind of incredible the day that I went to it though. I planned on doing another state park that same day, so I showed up at Roy Lake at about 10 in the morning. The lake had froze over the night before, and it was about 45 degrees the day before, and above freezing when I was there, so an incredibly thin layer of ice was on the lake. I had the park all to myself, so I did the Roy Island Trail and headed out. The main reason this park was in the E tier and was second to last was because of the lack of trails. 10. Oakwood Lakes. Moving into the D tier, we have Oakwood Lakes State Park, a 293-acre park in Brookings County. This park likely ranked at the bottom of D tier because it's the closest state park to SDSU, where I'm living and going to school. I went to it often even before I started the South Dakota State Parks mission. The park has about 5 miles of trails, and I have a perfect 4.25-mile loop I go and do every time I'm there. This park also doesn't have as good as vista points as some of the other parks in D tier. It's mostly flat throughout. 9. Good Earth. Moving a little over an hour south, we have Good Earth State Park, a 650-acre park in Lincoln County just outside of Sioux Falls. The park is located on the Big Sioux River and has a variety of different landscapes throughout, from grasslands to forested hillsides to riverside floodplain. The park has about 7 miles of trails that wind through the park's many features. I usually do the trails north to south, starting hiking north out of the parking lot and south along the river, turning around when I get to the southernmost point in the park. The park has some good overlook decks which look across the Big Sioux River into northwest Iowa. I've also seen a ton of deer at this park. 8. Lake Herman. One of the last lake parks, Lake Herman State Park is 227 acres located just outside of Madison, South Dakota in Lake County. The park has just a little under 4 miles of trails, some of which rise high above the lake, giving great views. The way the park is laid out is another reason it ranked higher than some. The park is a peninsula located on Lake Herman, but also features a pond in the middle of it. The pond is by no means small, with a 1.7-mile loop to hike around. This is usually where the ducks hang out. The park also has a huge campground, which is popular with families. This is the smallest state park in South Dakota by acreage. 7. Newton Hills. This is probably one of the most well-known parks in eastern South Dakota. Newton Hills State Park is a 948-acre park in southern Lincoln County. The park has one of the best trail systems I've ever seen, with almost 10 miles of trails. I did 7 of them when I went last spring, and each turn I took felt different. There were some deciduous sections that reminded me of Iowa, while a small loop in the northeast part of the park was entirely surrounded by pine trees, and it felt like western South Dakota because of the steep grades. Overall, I would definitely recommend this park to anyone in the area. It's right halfway between Sioux Falls and Sioux City. 6. Union Grove. At the top of D tier and breaking into the top half, we have Union Grove State Park, South Dakota's southernmost. The park is 282 acres and contains over 5 miles of trails. This park has some of the best vista points in southeast South Dakota, which caused it to rank top half. The park is situated not far from the floodplain, and from the top of the hills you can see it. I started on the Brule Creek Trail when I got there, and then started the large multi-use trail on the west side of the park. After finishing that, I took the other side of the Brule Creek Trail back to the car, and this part was in the valley. It was kind of impressive as nothing on the hilltops have greened up yet, but everything down by the creek was green. 5. Hartford Beach. Our only park in the C tier, we have Hartford Beach State Park, a 331-acre park in Roberts County on Big Stone Lake. The park only has 3 miles of trails, but the views from the park make up for it. Minnesota is directly across the lake from this park, and you can see it from almost anywhere in the park as well. I parked down near the campground and boat ramp, and I took the trail through the campground to the Robar Loop. This is the park's main trail, with it consisting of a mile down by the lake, half a mile up the hill, a mile on top of the hill, and half a mile down. The best part is the final half mile, because Aspen Spring flows out along the trail, which has waterfalls and cascades all along it. There are steep hillsides on both sides of you, so the trail feels very sheltered as well. The views from the top of the hill over Big Stone Lake are also incredible. 4. Palisades. Entering the B tier, we have the highest ranked park in the southeast South Dakota region of our map. Palisades State Park is truly unparalleled by any park in this region, with its pink quartzite cliffs flanking Split Rock Creek, a tributary of the Big Sioux River. This park is 435 acres and has 4 miles of trails, with most of them being on the east side of the creek. However, the King and Queen Rock trails on the west side of the creek is home to the King and Queen Rocks, the most impressive formations in the park, both being over 50 feet tall and standing out in the middle of the creek. Queen Rock is the most free climbable of the two, and I've climbed it multiple times. It has great views of the Palisades downstream. The bridge is also what makes this park feel unique. When you're hiking down by the creek below the bridge with rocks on both sides of you, you feel like you're somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains instead of the Great Plains because of how the bridge looks. This is an incredibly popular park with the people of Sioux Falls and is usually crowded on weekends, but other than that, there aren't a lot of drawbacks to the park. 3. Sica Hollow. Our highest park in the northeast South Dakota region, we have Sica Hollow State Park, a 900-acre park with more than 8 miles of trails. A lot of people would have Palisades higher in their ranking than Sica Hollow, but I stand my ground, with this park having the best views of any park in eastern South Dakota. To know what makes this park special, you actually have to know a little about the geography of the region. A large part of eastern South Dakota is composed of the Prairie Coteau, a flatiron-shaped piece of land that is much higher than the areas surrounding it. This was caused by the second to last glaciation, with the glaciers covering all the land except this piece, which caused the elevation of the land to be higher than the surrounding land, which was covered. The last ice age did cover the Coteau, however, and has left it with thousands of glacial lakes all over it. Sica Hollow State Park is situated on the escarpment of the Coteau on the northeast side, which means the park has a high elevation difference. The park is 1,400 feet above sea level at the bottom of the trail and is 2,000 feet above sea level at the highest point on the trail. Not only that, the area east of the park is even lower, with the elevation at the vista points sometimes being 800 feet higher than the land below. This gives the area along the Front Ridge some amazing views and is the reason it's the best state park in eastern South Dakota. Whenever I come here, there's a perfect 6.67 mile loop that I do, which goes through most of the trails in the park. 2. Bear Butte. Wow, no one expected this. The 2 western parks are the top 2 overall. Wow. Seriously, if you didn't see this coming, then I don't know, man. Bear Butte is a 1935-acre park in Meade County, South Dakota, just outside of the Black Hills. The park contains over 8 miles of trails, with the main set being the 2.5 miles to get to the summit of Bear Butte itself. The top of the butte is over 4,400 feet above sea level and has stunning views of the surrounding grassland and the distant hills. The first time I went here, There were actually Boy Scouts working on the overlook deck, so my attempt to climb the mountain was unsuccessful, believe it or not. I had to come back a week later to finish the job, hiking around the lake and across the highway in the process. This is one of the most quiet parks in the Black Hills, and if you are looking for a place to get away from all the tourist traffic, this is it. There will be people, but not as many as you will find in the actual hills themselves. This is also the only park that ranked in the A tier. 1. Custer. Wow, no one expected this either. Custer State Park is a 71,000-acre park in Custer County, South Dakota. The park contains over 60 miles of trails, a lot of which is the Centennial Trail, a 110-mile trail that runs north to south through the Black Hills. It does a really good job at connecting a lot of the trails in Custer State Park with each other. I've done a bunch of different hikes here: Legion Lake, Sylvan Lake, Sunday Gulch, and Lover's Leap. I've also used portions of the Centennial Trail to connect myself with much more of the smaller trails. Not to mention the park roads in this park. SD 87, also known as the Needles Highway, is one of the most impressive roads to ever be built, and is definitely a fan favorite when it comes to scenic drives in South Dakota. The park itself is great, but its proximity to other parks is what puts it over the top. The park is adjacent to the Black Hills National Forest, Wind Cave National Park, and isn't far from other places of recreation in western South Dakota. Overall, Custer State Park is unmatched, and because of that, it is the S-tier state park for South Dakota and a household name around the United States. These are my thoughts on each of the South Dakota state parks. Feel free to let me know your comments down below. At the end of the summer, I will put out a similar video on Minnesota that will be the longest of the 3. I will also see you next week for the MCC 21 placement race video.